Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of the Investor Motivation Podcast. Today we will be covering off, and we is Robert Gowdy and myself, Amy Lehman.
Hello.
Today we're going to be covering off on age gaps in retirement, what that looks like, what strategies actually become available, and just the things to think about if you do have a significant gap.
We see it regularly, and someone that's around age, pension age, retirement age, getting sick of work, and has a younger spouse. Might be 5 years, might be 10, might be 20. We've seen it all in our business here, and it provides opportunity and also extra complexity. And we just thought we would cover off on what is probably a topic that isn't spoken about too much, but there are things to consider.
Yeah. Cool.
Fantastic.
Before we get into it, I will do the acknowledgement of land. On behalf of the Investor Motivation Podcast, we would like to pay our respects to the traditional owners of the land on which we do record this podcast, and pay our respects to elders past, present and emerging.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy. Now, we probably started thinking about this one because there was some clients that we were chatting to, and there was a really decent gap, and they met with a financial advisor in their hometown, and it was perceived as a negative. It wasn't looked on in a good way, where you and I, our minds went probably
straight to the positives. And
we're obviously slightly more glass half full, but we went to the positive.
Yeah, of course there's going to be difficulties with that relationship, and juggling, especially as one person does become fully retired and want to use their free time to explore the world, and the other person still might love their job and have passion in their career and purpose. There's that struggle. But she said as soon as she mentioned to the advisor, I think it was a 10-year age gap for this client, they were just like, oh, that's gonna be, and it was just a negative thing straight away, and that really affected her mood and her view on retirement, which is really sad because it's supposed to be such a happy and exciting time.
Cool. Well, there's the negative, and there are downsides to it. But what's the positive? Where did our minds go as financial advisors, as people trying to get the most out of retirement and also the most out of Centrelink and age pension? Where did we go?
Well, I think immediately I went to the Centrelink and age pension path. She was the elder in the relationship, so her husband was younger by 10 years, that strategy, being able to load up the younger spouse superannuation world, and then it just makes that superannuation asset exempt from Centrelink from a household level.
Fantastic. So that's when someone is below age pension age and the money is sitting in accumulation within superannuation, not pension, it's exempt.
Yeah, so if we load up that spouse's superannuation and they're still working, so they're still in that accumulation phase, all the money in that account is exempt from Centrelink.
And of course, once you get to 60, and 67 is age pension age, you can retire. Well, you can retire whenever you want. There's no rules when people can retire. But at age 60, you can be retired as long as the money is in superannuation. In accumulation, it's not counted.
Yeah.
As soon as you move it across to an account-based pension, then you're snookered. It's going to be counted for Centrelink.
Yeah.
So that's where we are often loading up the younger spouse's superannuation fund, which also serves another purpose of recontribution strategy. So slightly off topic, but it's two birds, one stone.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Well, with the recontribution strategy, obviously it's withdrawing money from the elder person's superannuation account to then load up into the youngers, which shelters those assets because it's in that accumulation phase.
So it's taking some money out that would be taxable.
Yep.
And taking it out and then putting it as a non-concessional contribution. There are limits on how much you can get in, and that would go as non-concessional. That would form the tax-free component. So it gets rid of some of those potential 17% where superannuation money is paid to non-dependents.
Yeah.
So where it doesn't work quite as well, let's say that someone has turned age pension age, 67, so they're ready to get some age pension, but they've got too much money in their own superannuation, but their spouse is, say, 55. So you're taking money out of that person to put into 55, you are losing access.
Yes, Of course.
Yeah. So it's a balancing act to know how much you can have in superannuation. Oh, sorry, how much in assets you can have before your pension is reduced. And so you know those numbers. It means you can keep money, still accessible.
Yeah.
And putting an amount of money away that will be exempted,
Yeah.
although you can't touch it. Say if that person is 55 and retired, you can't touch it till they're 60.
Yes, if you are just over that assets threshold, you may be able to move a little bit to just give a part pension, or at that point in time, any money moved into the sheltered area is a benefit. But if you're already receiving the full age pension based on what you've got in super, there would be no need to then move more assets.
Yeah. Now, Amy, I'm going to make up an awesome little case study here. This is about investment time horizons and the relationship and how you should invest. So you've got the spouse's age pension age, or 65, wants to retire, and because they're retiring, they say, right, now we need to make all these assets really conservative. And the spouse is 10 years younger, they're 55. And so, well, hold on, there's, when we look at the life expectancy of these two, this couple, one's 65, one's 55, how should we be thinking about this when one is saying, right, I'm now retired, I'm not making any more money, I've got to be really conservative with our money?
Well, I guess the real conservative approach to this would be to view it as the younger person's life expectancy to be the time horizon.
So you use their time frame?
Yes, the young person, and we always will project out on the projectors based on the young person's life expectancy, because the money has to fund their whole life, and statistically they're going to be around for more years than the older person.
Yep. So let's say in this example, the 65-year-old is a male, and his life expectancy is that sort of 80-ish or thereabouts. So you wouldn't take into account the 15 to 20 years that may be left for him. We would look at the younger female at 55, fairly good chance that person may get to 90. So we're talking 35 to 40 years, and that's the time frame.
Yes, definitely.
Yeah, and the reason why that's really important, the longer the time frame when we invest, the more growth assets we can take on. With education and knowledge, the more volatility that we can accept and expect, and that will give us a far stronger return than being too conservative.
Yeah, if we instead flipped it and went with the older spouse's age and we only invested for 15 years, you may be taking a more conservative approach, which means more cash, fixed interest in an area that assets don't generally grow.
Yep.
So if you're still spending, quite comfortably, if you live, you'll obviously diminish the value of the portfolio a lot quicker, and there's not the growth to then back up that spending.
Yeah. So I think that's a real key point. And when you're meeting with your financial advisor, or you're doing some projections at home, this 1%, 1.5% makes a monster difference in terms of the outcome over a long period of time.
1% as in growth?
In growth or whatever it is, So the more growth assets you've got will give you a slightly higher return, and it has a monster difference over decades.
Yes.
Not a huge difference over the short term, but when people retire, we're not talking about short term, it is long term.
And that's why we want to look at that young spouse's age and how many years they have ahead of them.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, this is another interesting case study that let's say we've got the same couple, and there's 10 years gap, 65 and 55.
Yeah.
And this is not financial, but it's, when you get to do stuff.
Yeah.
We spoke about the go-go years, that the 65-year-old person has got how many years? The first third?
Yeah, first 10 or so years is, the go-go years when you're young enough and you're fit enough and, you want to do all those bucket list items. But your spouse is 10 years younger and still working and still loves their job. So how do you juggle how much is fun time and how much is still at home time?
Yes. Yeah.
It's an extremely hard, I guess, something to advise on as financial advisors. It's going to be the balance between the couple, but there does need to be that level of give and take. And it sounds like, oh no, the poor young person, they have to take time off work to go travel and have lots of fun. But it's just different.
Yeah,
life
and-
stages.
Well, that's right, and that person might be in the midst of a career they love. So I suppose this is very personal, and and a lot of it does affect the longevity of money. People working, helps money last longer, of course, because you're not
Yeah.
relying solely on your superannuation or investment assets. But the options there would doesn't, because there's a big age gap, doesn't mean that the younger person has to retire. They can go part-time, they can take their annual leave, long service leave, their accumulated leave benefits. There can always be that time to say, well, can I get some time without pay?
Yeah.
Because that 5 to 10 years of the elder spouse is really important.
It is.
Yeah. So if he or she said, right, I'll retire at 65 and I won't do anything. We won't do any travel till you retire in 10 years' time from now. That takes that person to mid-70s. The chances of them, they may well still be fit enough, but they may not be.
Yeah.
So I think there's got to be compromises in that area, which are difficult.
Yeah, and whether it even is for the elder spouse travelling with friends or family members that might be around the similar age, or it doesn't have to be with the spouse, but obviously creating those memories as a couple is extremely important.
Yeah, absolutely. Anything else at all? I think for me they were those key factors. That it can be a positive, it can be a negative particularly when travelling and aligning the times to make sure that the spouses are enjoying the same things at the same time.
Yeah. And you want to make sure that it is an open discussion amongst the couple themselves, and make sure that the resentment doesn't build because they've had to stay home because the spouse is working, or vice versa, taking time away from work that
Yes.
they love to travel when they don't feel that's their time. So definitely talk openly, honestly about that, and see if there's any workarounds with friends or anyone to travel with.
All right, well, we've probably covered off the early stages in retirement, but let's now talk about the won't call it the uglier back end, but the back end when that spouse that is 10 years older and has now got failing health, and all of a sudden the younger person starts potentially turns into a carer.
Carer role,
So how have we seen that play out in practice?
Well, there's a lot of options out there that we have in Australia for, getting help in. So that's a number one thing that you would want to be looking at if it is a carer role that's taking away too much, when the younger person might also want to still be travelling with their friends or anybody else. So it's exploring the options that are available to receive some help. Also making sure the estate planning is up to date, and if it is in superannuation world, spouse or money going from spouse to spouse is obviously tax free, but both of the couple are now elderly, so considering and looking at those tax benefits again, if we haven't already in the past, with your financial advisor, those recontribution strategies to get as much tax-free component within the super world as possible.
Yeah, and there's probably an extension strategy to that. Estate planning, yes, and you need to have your powers of attorney, medical and financial all done correctly.
Yeah.
But let's say that as a couple, they don't receive any pension at all for just too many assets.
Pension.
Age pension, so they don't receive anything. But there's clearly a big age gap, and that more than likely someone's going to die before the other. Doesn't always happen like that, but quite often where there's been a bad prognosis, we'll often load up that older, less healthy person with their assets in their individual name. And if the family, you say, right, dad, mum's 95 and dad's 85, mum's not going too well and may pass away, loading up a lot of assets into her name, knowing that dad won't need much in retirement once you get to 85, that a lot of those assets can, via the will, skip the dad, the younger spouse, and make them eligible. So there is Centrelink planning at the front end, and there's Centrelink planning at the back end as well. And that's something that we've done in the past, where people get to an age where they just don't need much extra.
Yeah, and as long as they're comfortable to then send that early inheritance, because normally it does go spouse to spouse,
Yes.
100%, and then children. But yeah, if they're happy to forego because they don't need the money, they're a little bit in the slow go or the no go years of
Yeah.
retirement, they are happy to send
Yep.
the money towards the kids, watch them enjoy the money and whatever that brings, and then free money, I guess, from the government.
Yeah,
When
and,
you s-
and yeah, and of course we're not saying that you have to give all the money away. There's assets test limits
Yeah.
that you can have up to 300-400 grand, and it doesn't affect your age pension.
Mm-hmm.
So we never leave someone in a position that they've got they haven't got the income they need to live a comfortable life.
Yeah.
And as we get older, you get into those 80s into your 90s. Well, you are just after a comfortable life and a warm bed and some decent food on the table every now and then.
Yeah, exactly. In those no-go years, it's just being comfy at home and still having those luxuries at home. It's not
Yeah.
$20,000 trips overseas anymore. So
Well, hopefully it might be for some that are fit enough and well enough to do it. But I think that's a really interesting part, that there's strategy. There's retirement Centrelink planning front end
yeah,
that are beneficial, and it can be done at the back end as well.
yeah.
Yeah, fantastic.
Good point.
All right, I think we've probably covered off enough on this one.
Yeah, I
Yep.
think it's a good, short, sweet one.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, thank you very much for tuning in and listening. Please check out our YouTube channel that has got plus, I think, 630 videos there. We've put a lot of time in that over the last 12, 13 years. Amy's got her TikTok, The Wealth Diaries, and Instagram.
Yeah.
I'm now official on Instagram as well, and TikTok, which is running live at the moment. And that is just, Rob Gowdy, Financial Advisor. So please check us out. We're all about education, building knowledge. And if you have any questions, let us know
Yeah.
any topics you'd like us to cover.
Yeah, we're more than happy to answer. We
Cool.
actually would love it, so shoot them through.
Awesome. Thanks, Amy.
All right, thanks
Cool.
everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.